then we pick up the conversation.
Good morning.
Once again, good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Diamond, Public Affairs Officer. Thank you for such a great turnout today. Happy to have you here. Ambassador Gonzalez is going to provide some opening remarks. After that, we'll turn to questions and answers, and I'll come back up to ask on questions. But with that, I'm honored to introduce U.S. Ambassador to Zambia, Michael Gonzalez.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, and thank you all for joining me here today. It is with a heavy heart that I must announce that the United States is cutting $50 million, that's 1.4 billion kwacha, in annual aid to Zambia provided for medications and medical supplies. For more than 1 year, the government of the United States has requested tangible action from the government of Zambia to respond to the countrywide systematic theft of these products provided by the United States. In the face of minimal action for steps to safeguard and ensure the accountability of U.S. American taxpayer funds. For more than 60 years, the United States and Zambia have shared a strong friendship. Because of our commitment to Zambia, 17 billion kwacha annually toward our shared goals of economic development and improved health and public well-being. Roughly 1 in every 3 kwacha spent on public health in Zambia comes as grant assistance from the American people. As part of this, in recent years, the United States has provided approximately $128 million annually. That's about 3.5 billion kwacha every year to buy medications to treat HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis, as well as to provide the technical and operational support for Zambia for free to the Zambian patients in need. Now today, millions of Zambians are living longer, healthier lives because of this assistance, which comes again in the form of grants, not loans, provided by the American taxpayer. We're incredibly proud to have partnered with Zambia to reverse the AIDS epidemic and to reach epidemic control today. Due to joint efforts by the United States and Zambia, 98% of Zambians living with HIV know their status. 99% of Zambians who know are virally suppressed, meaning they cannot transmit the virus. Beyond our support related to HIV, over the past 10 years, our joint efforts have helped reduce deaths from malaria and tuberculosis by more than 75%. Our investments in Zambia are intended to benefit the Zambian people. U.S. donated medical supplies and medicines, which include antiretrovirals or ARVs, but also tuberculosis and anti-malarial drugs and others, are made available to Zambians for free. Today, 1 in every 9 Zambians is living with HIV, but the majority of those 1.3 million Zambians is virally suppressed. They can't transmit the virus because of ARVs provided by the United States and intended for free distribution. However, I am disappointed to share publicly today that since 2021, we've uncovered systematic theft of life-saving medicines and other products that were intended for free for the Zambian public, including ARVs and anti-tuberculosis, anti-malaria treatments. Now, as soon as we discovered this countrywide theft in late 2021, we immediately informed the Zambian government of our findings, and we initiated an across the country on-the-ground assessment of private pharmacies to understand the extent of the issue. From 2021 through late 2023, our buyers visited more than 2,000 pharmacies that the United States provides for free to Zambia's healthcare system. Shockingly, across these visits, 95% of the pharmacies that were selling the kinds of products that the United States provides were also selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that was the views by the American ambassador exposing this huge rot, and that they've been monitoring since 2021. Now, the UPND attempted to say this is from the PF. Come on. I think under the parameters set up by Dr. Chitalo Chilufya, he was very prudent, setting up of ZAMSA, ZAMRA, and the institutions were quite working. Theft of medicine, like everyone has stated, has always been there, but it wasn't as extensive and as the rot was, especially under Madam Sylvia Masebo. The corruption at Ministry of Health is of deep concern. First, for the first 9 months when President Hakainde Hichilema came into office, there were no medical supplies and medicines in hospital, because what Honorable Sylvia Masebo did was to cancel and close the procurement process under Ministry of Health. She alleged that she needed the procurement to be disbanded. So she abolished the procurement process, and she said ZAMSA, under the law, ZAMSA provided for it to be the procurement entity, and that she was implementing the law. She was actioning the law of ZAMSA and ensure that ZAMSA. So for 9 months, the country had no medicines, was relying on medicine that came from the previous government. There was even a parliamentary committee, the one on health, that had to do an undertaking and a detailed research on the critical shortage of medicines, the broken down equipment in hospitals. And in 2022, 2023, they produced a very damning report, and it said we had gone below 40%, the required number by WHO for recommended presence of medicine, especially the critical medical supplies for emergencies and other things, had fallen below 40%. The standard is 75% and above. So for 3 years, nothing was done. For 3 years, we exposed the rot, we exposed everything, but no, the president did not act. The president, there were 3 key permanent secretaries that were changed from the ministry. One time, after persistent complaints across the country, the president was forced to go and spend one entire afternoon at Ministry of Health. The problem didn't go away. The problem of lack of and shortages of medicines and medical supplies, laboratory reagents, broken down equipment, then the huge acts of corruption that was happening in the medical and medicine procurement. I'll go into details. But coming back to the US ambassador, did President Hakainde Hichilema know about this crisis? Did he know about it? Let's see what he said just in December.
Because you know the health sector has been a sick sector itself. Supposed to be healing, but it's been sick in terms of theft of public drugs. It's a cancerous situation. It's an old situation we inherited. So the president asked for an audit, not a normal audit, but a forensic audit. And we knew that inside government we didn't have the capacity. But the audit of all public finances is the Auditor General. This story is very important. So we then asked the Auditor General to subcontract to private firms with capacity to do forensic audit in accordance with the law. And that process was undertaken. Terms of reference were reviewed by our cooperating partners in the health sector. And the contract was awarded to PricewaterhouseCoopers, led by Andrew Chibwe. I think you know Andrew, some of you. And Andrew was given, Pricewaterhouse was given the work to do up to December, the initial work. So we decided, the president decided we needed to have an initial report to see which direction this thing is going. In the process, some of our cooperating pastors started issuing contrary statements that there's nothing happening in controlling the problems in the cancerous health sector, contrary to what we agreed as a process. So I called a meeting here. We had a meeting like this last Friday. I think it was Friday. And opened remarks, the media left. When we went through, we ended up working together and hugging each other. That's what can happen if people start to issue contrary statements without reaching out to each other. And you find that the work we agreed, what Pricewater has done, is in accordance with the work we asked them to do. The preliminary report, the final report will come in December. And in December, we will sit again to now agree what sanctions need to be taken. I must alert you as citizens that the health sector has been dogged with problems for probably 20 years. And we are committed to rooting out those problems. But we can't do it by a thumbsuck. We have to pin down where the problems are, right? Who is taking drugs? How is it that drugs leave a health process system, end up in private pharmacies, some of which are owned by people working in the same?
The president has been very much aware of the rot at the Ministry of Health. Like I stated, in 2022, he had to spend the whole afternoon to understand why there was critical shortage of medicines, medical supplies, laboratory reagents. People couldn't take tests. Diagnostics tests had to be done to the private sector. They couldn't be done from any of our hospitals, clinics, and health facilities. A committee, parliamentary committee by our National Assembly also had to, it was chaired by the chairperson of UPND Health Committee, the National Management Committee, who's Lukulu East Member of Parliament, former Deputy Minister of Health. So you cannot accuse Parliament of having been biased. It was led by their own key person, who's a former Deputy Minister of Health, who is Lukulu East Member of Parliament and is chair of the UPND National Management Committee on Health, and he tabulated that the availability of medicines, medical supplies, laboratory reagents, and equipment was not available. It was below par, around 40%. And sadly, the Ministry of Health had engaged in purchasing some of these medicines and medical supplies abroad, even when they were manufactured in our country. For example, drips, Panadol, and some of the things, because Madam Sylvia Masebo said they were a cartel and she didn't want anything to do with them. She accused those entities of being PF. And sadly, for 2 to 3 years, our country suffered. If we were in the Western world, I think a commission of inquiry would have been set up, would have established how many people died during that period when we had no medicines, when the minister was engaged in petty fights with suppliers and literally paralyzed the entire system. At the funeral of his dear wife, Honorable Danny Kaliaria, the Bank of Zambia governor, in December 2024, just last year, he lost his wife to cancer. And at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, the president was present. And when he stood up to give his tribute to his dear wife, he gave his tribute and he looked at the president and said, "Mr. President, it is so sad that the money allocated for medicines and medical supplies is being looted." He had personally experienced it. His wife had undergone treatment or lack of it in Zambia for a longer period, and I think she was evacuated to South Africa, where she sadly passed on, and may her soul rest in eternal peace, Madam Ada Mwale Kalialia. But the Bank of Zambia governor, just in December, told the president the extent of the rot. Just look at, again, this matter. Our Secretary to Treasury, Felix Nkulukusa, was before the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, PAC. And he said the trouble is the looting of medicines. And he says, sadly, this health sector is not run by us. It's fully funded by the United States. They give us $600 million a year. What that means that just in the last 4 years, they had given just that health sector $2.4 billion. And over the last 10 years, they had given us so much money. So he bemoaned that sadly, the theft at the Ministry of Health starts from the top to the bottom, and everyone is stealing, including the driver, including the security guard. But the trouble is, the theft is occurring from the top. Just listen to what his submission was to the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, Public Accounts Committee.
Appointed colleagues to make sure that they come on board, and we are hoping that we can move together. The issue of the procurement of medicine, most of it with short shelf life, the major challenge we have had, and I would want to say this, sometimes when we fail, we should admit, is that the ZAMSA project, I could only describe it as a failed project. We have seen pilferages from the top up to the driver, up to the security guard and everyone else. And what we are discussing now is, can we have a ZAMSA reset? Not business as usual. And one of the things I've been having meetings with the cooperating partners, the entire health sector was run by, most of it was run by the US government. We are receiving $600 million on an annual basis, $450 million going into the health sector. I asked the colleagues, the contracts manager from USAID, I had a meeting with the PS, we have been having meetings with them to try and talk about the reset of ZAMSA and how we fill in the void because USAID is going out. And I had a meeting with the contracts manager for USAID. How much does it cost for ZAMSA to distribute the medicine? 3.5 times the cost of what it costs for these agencies that are helping us to do this work. 3.5 times. So if we say ZAMSA starts distributing the medicine and we don't reset ZAMSA, it means we are going to increase the cost by 3.5 times. We had another situation where there was a report, there was no medicine at ZAMSA in 2002. We went in 2003, we had a lot of money from ZAMSA because of procurement. And we sat down and agreed with ZAMSA, for this medicine for this money we have, finish your money that we have. We are not going to recall it because this is an important sector. Finish this money before we start giving you the new money. As the money was coming, we were told, no, we don't have any money. Ministry of Finance is not releasing the money. And we received a lot of intelligence report where ZAMSA are saying they don't have the money. We produced a report, ZAMSA had the money. 2 days later, we were told there were trucks that were in a private garage carrying ZAMSA medicine that were not being accounted for. And you ask yourself, where are those?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. So we've asserted, the US ambassador has stated that there is systematic looting of the medicines and medical supplies that are supplied to government. And he said almost the entire stock from ZAMSA, when it's distributed, moves to the private sector. And they had conducted their own investigations where they gave money to 2,000 entities to go and buy for these medicines. So the entities went to the clinics, they found the medicines was not available, but the pharmacies and private drugstores had stocked the same medicines that the people of the US supplied to Zambia. And he said he has had the US ambassador, Michael Gonzalez, stated that he's had 33 meetings just this one last year, 33 meetings to attempt to resolve this. And he says he didn't see any reluctance. In the end, he said he was funding theft, so he has withheld $50 million. Washington has withheld $50 million. We've seen the president has acknowledged the problem. Felix Nkuluksa, who's the secretary to Treasury, has also stated the same thing. So there's no doubt that the theft has been going on. Why wasn't there action? Today in my address, I am asserting that because the president is engaged in corruption allegations, the people underneath who loot, we will steal even more. When there is no leadership, they've just seen rhetoric at the top, you will see the wanton theft from permanent secretary to everyone up to the driver. The fight against corruption has to be led from the top. So before I delve into all those details and justify my strong assertions, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Keith Mwamba, who was won as first president. I think Andrew Kamanga was a leading candidate, and I think many people wanted Andrew Kamanga to win. But he made several categorical mistakes. I think he undermined too many people. He antagonized too many people. Remember when the announcement came, he was a sole candidate and disqualified everyone. The process leading to today was so fractious, so volatile, that Andrew Kamanga lost the opportunity to lead again. I think he was a better leader. I think he has far better experience, but he made several categorical mistakes. There are allegations that Keith Mwamba was sponsored and supported by State House. Now, if Keith Mwamba is supported by State House, you needed even to be more careful. For example, I would have reached out to Kashala and ensured that Kashala was on my side, because look, Kashala got 17 votes, Andrew got 20 votes. That would have been 47 votes. So Andrew Kamanga, like the mistakes that Kalusha made in 2011, I remember. That time, Kalusha was a better candidate, had better experience, had links with FIFA and CAF, and was loved across the country, but he made categorical mistakes. He engaged in these fights with Andrew Kamanga, and Andrew Kamanga had the backing, apparently, of the state, and he beat Kalusha Bwalia. The same game has been played against Andrew Kamanga. And in my view, I think Andrew Kamanga should have learned from his own earlier mistakes. When you are fighting a candidate, we've seen it at the Law Association of Zambia and others, when you are fighting a candidate that is perceived to be a candidate of the state, to be a candidate of State House, you will need to have a larger heart, antagonize as few people as possible. There was no need first for that sole candidate. There was totally no need for that sole candidate. Number two, he banned too many people, including my young man, Kapianga, from Northern Province. Young and upcoming, very brilliant young leader. So Andrew Kamanga caused ripples and lost many friends along the way. I remember how Rupia Banda lost elections in 2011. It was very simple. He fought the Catholics. He had Chanda Chimba spew hatred against the Catholic, and it's that time the Archbishop was Telesfo Mpundu. Telesfo Mpundu was called all sorts of names. Rupia Banda's camp antagonized everyone. And it was easy for Michael Sata to take that election. When you go to elections, especially for handlers of the president, they make terrible mistakes. They make as many enemies as possible for the president or the candidate, and the candidate remains in isolation. So while I congratulate Keith Mwamba for this deserved win, whether he's a State House candidate or not, whether he's been backed up by government or not, there are things Andrew should have done. And remember now, Andrew was going for a third term. This is an unpopular thing in our country. So Andrew Kamanga should have taken better steps in my view. But congratulations to Keith Mwamba and to my dear brother Andrew Kamanga. You are still sitting on CAF. I think you still have aspirations to go to FIFA. I think let's build bridges, let's mend fences. I personally do not want to see what we saw between you and Kalusha to go on. I hope that Keith Mwamba will have a large heart and call Andrew Kamanga and patch up the differences. Unlike what we saw, in fact, the camp for Kalusha were from 2011, 2012, moved to Keith Mwamba. So the same camp that he failed to bridge the gap is the one that has now succeeded in supporting Keith Mwamba to win this election. It's very important as a leader that you are gracious when you win an election, that you begin to mend fences, you build bridges, that you begin to forge, mechanics of unity when you are in office. But what we see is arrogance, where people now think because they are at the top, they can antagonize everyone. A day will come of calling. That was aside. Today we are discussing the loot that's occurring, the theft of medicine. Let me play the ambassador's views just briefly, and then I'm asserting that the president doesn't have clean hands in the fight against corruption. He's been accused of being part of the corruption. He hasn't declared his assets. His hands are in too many pots, and I'll demonstrate. And hence we see the rot from permanent secretaries, ministers, now to drivers and everyone just stealing. Someone was sent a message, he said, Ambassador, tamwali pilapo bribe pa speed camera. Tamwali pilapo makumanya wa traffic police officer, tamwaba bo shapo na 100 kwacha. This is a rot that we are all guilty of. I agree, but there's something that comes with leadership. There's something that comes with leadership. And with leadership, unfortunately, you have to lead. And that's what our country expects us to do. Let me bring the ambassador, then we delve into the details.
Stolen goods. Of those pharmacies selling stolen goods, 45% were selling stolen products that the United States had provided to Zambia for free for Zambians in need. Let me repeat that. In all 10 provinces, nearly half of the pharmacies that were selling the types of products that the United States provides for free for the Zambian people were selling stolen medications and medical supplies donated by the United States government. Now, the rest of the pharmacies that were selling stolen products were still selling stolen medicines and supplies from stocks that were purchased by the Zambian government, by the Global Fund, by other donor partners. On April 3rd of last year, 2024, I brought this alarming information to the attention of senior Zambian government leaders. In attendance at the meeting on that day were high-level officials from multiple ministries, from multiple law enforcement agencies and the executive. I asked them to take meaningful action on two fronts. First, I asked for action to mitigate further theft of U.S. provided goods. And second, I asked to enforce high-level accountability for those who are involved in stealing these life-saving medicines from the Zambian people. Over the next 13 months, through more than 33 senior meetings with permanent secretary level or higher Zambian officials by U.S. Embassy staff, senior officials from Washington, and me, we reiterated our requests to the Zambian government for action to stop the further theft and to bring the culprits to justice. We even offered U.S. government experts in supply chain management and in law enforcement to partner with Zambian counterparts to support the requested efforts. I regret that to date, the government's actions have fallen drastically short of demonstrating a commitment to safeguarding U.S. assistance and the lives that we aim to save with it. Instead of investigating supply sources or pursuing the masterminds behind the theft of medicines, law enforcement operations have focused more often than not on low-level actors and have led to the arrest of only a few mid-level officials.
Thank you to His Excellency Ambassador Michael Gonzalez, the U.S. Ambassador resident in Zambia. And remember, this is the second time he's talking about the extent of corruption. And you have to allow the Americans, unfortunately, to speak. This is a country that gives us $600 million a year in financial aid to our country. $600 million. We are one of the highest beneficiaries in Africa, other than Egypt. Egypt, and I can't remember, is it Kenya? But Zambia is one of the top, beneficiary to the US aid in Africa. They get to the extent of $600 million a year. And this has been going on from 2010. It hasn't started now. So imagine the billions they've given just the last 15 years. So the US ambassador, unfortunately, has a right to speak. And he says, out of what we give you every year, you cried that you had drought. You cried that you didn't have money and you were affected by drought. We gave you $20 million. You imported maize from Tanzania. It was priced 3 times higher than the market value. Then, other than that, it was priced 3 times higher than the market value. Only 45% of that maize has arrived in the country. Now, this is $20 million out of this, away from the $600 million they give us. They act as a good bilateral partner, and they give us that $20 million. We loot it. We give it to, these businesses that then get overpriced maize where they loot this money. And of that maize of $20 million, only, very little, 45% had arrived. This is said last month, I think at an event held either by Transparency International or Law Association of Zambia. That is the extent of the rotting. Monama ambassadors vaima vambo kulanda. That is the extent of the rot. The president has not been clean. There are 2 key issues that he has, I think, mishandled. First of all, he has not moved from community house to state house. What that means is that government and the state have been forced to upgrade his home. I know State House has repeatedly said that there is no single ngwe that has been spent on community house. Let me tabulate. The everyday occurrence where the president moves from community house to State House, he goes back at lunch for lunch, then he comes back to work at 14 hours, then he knocks off at 17 hours. That entire trek, the amount of security deployed is very high. First, you need traffic police officers. Then you need security officers. Then you need intelligence officers. Because those people have to be covered. You have to ensure that the president is safe. So while you will see just a uniformed traffic officer at every corner on street lining, what we call that street lineup, there are other 2 to 3 officers that support that entire place. So if there are people at the car wash, there has to be an intelligence officer to see that there is no person who could be of harm or planning harm while the president is passing. You will not see those people. So the amount of deployment done for that route every day, 3 times a day, costs a lot of money. Number 2, they had to, if you saw opposite Lewanika Mall, they had to build a separate substation. If you're going to Chilenge, and I think there's where you put cooking gas. The ZESCO had, next to the other power station, they had to build another upgrade of the power station, and then they put a line underneath and dug it all the way to community house. You cannot have the president have load shedding. You cannot have the president have no power, because the president has chosen to stay at a community house. an investment by the state has to be done. So they've given him his own emergency power to ensure that he has reliable power. Like State House, UTH, and the area around State House, power doesn't go. Even in the worst of cases, sometimes even when you have a national shutdown, that area, including the investigation hospital, will have power because they are on emergency power line. Chilenje and Chalala, where the president is not on an emergency power line. So they had to create a power line to his house. Third, where the president is a no-fly zone. So the civil aviation of Zambia had to reroute flights. For those people that live around Woodlands, Chalala, all the way up to Charleston, they used to see flights overhead. You no longer see those flights. They've been rerouted because you cannot have planes flying over State House. So although Community House is not a state house, the civil aviation for provision of security for the president, wherever the president is, if, for example, the president is in Lufwanyama today, or Lufwanyama where they were launching Edgar Lungu's $450 million project, which was done under President Lungu, that area has to be a no-fly zone wherever the president is. So Community House is now permanently a no-fly zone. So now they have to reroute the planes. That's why you see they have to come through to Independence, Ngwerere area, then land at our Those are inherent costs that our people do not see. They had to provide an access road. You cannot have a president staying at an area where the next road is a gravel road. So if you notice, the road that comes to the ring road was the only one tarred. The one coming to Leopard Zoo, because the president has to have multiple accesses. So they had to tar a road. You will remember that I think Bowden Findlay has even sued the Road Development Agency because as they were doing that road, they had to destroy some apartments that belonged to Bowden Findlay. They said they were standing in the way of the road they were making. So they had to link from Community House to Leopard Zoo Road. That road had to be that had to be on tar. It had to be tarmac, properly paved all weather season. And you have to provide a link from Community House to up to airport. These are inherent security features that State House already has. State House already has multiple exits and multiple entrances, even if they are secured. The area is a no-fly zone. It's designed to be to accommodate our head of state. You will have a rich guy like Donald Trump. His home in Florida is 3, 4, 5 times better than White House. But the state had to tell him, Mr. President, you cannot live where you are living. You have to live at the White House. Because they are the inherent features, security features, is suitable for our job as security officers to do. So will the case of President Hakainde Hichilema be Nkandla when he leaves? Remember, one of the reasons that there was this Nkandla scandal is President Jacob Zuma, being a traditional man, married to 5 wives, he had one staying with him in Pretoria as first ladies, but they were all first ladies. So every weekend, Jacob Zuma would go to his homestead in KwaZulu-Natal, at his village in Nkandla, where he has this, a home. And it was not safe. So the security said, no, Mr. President, you are not safe where you are. So they did security upgrades. Even a mere swimming pool was turned that in case there's water, there's a fire, that the swimming pool had to be dug in some depth and widened so that it can hold emergency water to put out the fire in case the house went on fire. Sadly, Jacob Zuma was made to pay all the entire security upgrades that were done. The road, the wall fence, the swimming pool, the cameras and the entire infrastructure it was said, no, Mr. President, the state has provided for you infrastructure. So these other costs done at your leisure were not budgeted for, were not approved, and therefore, Mr. President, you have to pay. You cannot blame the state. It's a duty of the state to ensure that the president is secure wherever he is. But it's also important for the president to work within the parameters that are provided. So that's number one, his failure to move to community house. Secondly, his failure to declare assets. This is a businessman. He's associated with business. He's associated with issues around privatization. They've lingered around his entire life. People are suspicious about the wealth of the president. We know that he declared his assets in 2006, 2008, 2011, 2015, 2016, and 2021. Apparently, there were some amendments that were done to the law in 2016. And the law is murky. It says the president must submit his, declare his assets, his liabilities, and his business interest to ECZ. And now ECZ said, no, these were submitted to us, they are not for the public. My dear brother Sean Tembo went to court, to the Constitutional Court, and moved the court that can you compel ECZ to release the declaration of the president, because these are supposed to be public. We need to know how much he has come in with, and if he's making money, we need to know how much he has gone out with. Is he stealing? Is he engaged in corruption? Is he earning resources that he can't account for? When he's making these donations, 1.9 million, where is he getting the money from? The public have a duty to know. Unfortunately, the Constitutional Court says, no, the way the law has been framed, we can't compel the president to declare his assets. Go to ECZ, they'll give you the declarations. And of course, ECZ again refused. So we are stuck where the president is hiding behind a finger. He's saying the law says, I submit to ECZ. I have done so. I have declared my asset to ECZ. Then you go to ECZ. ECZ are also hiding behind a finger. They are saying, no, we can't give you the assets because they were declared to us, not to the public. Now, those two issues raise serious concern. They send a message that the president doesn't want to be accountable, that the president doesn't want to be transparent, that the president doesn't want to be subjected to scrutiny. That's the message it sends. Number three, the case of First Quantum. Followers of this podcast, Emmanuel Mwamba Verified, have always heard me talk about the $2.5 billion that First Quantum owes Kansanshi Copper and Gold Mine. So what happened in between 2009 and 2013, First Quantum moved these monies from Kansanshi Copper Mine and purported to lend the money to itself. They created a financial wing of First Quantum Financial something. But in essence, they were moving this money to develop one of the biggest copper mines in South America, Cobre Mine in Panama, $2.5 billion. When an audit was done, remember ZAMSA is listed in London, is listed in Paris, its books are subjected to proper international audit. The auditors came and established that there was this monies moved, and the monies were moved irregularly and illegally, and that the money should be brought back to First Quantum in Kansanshi. And then the two shareholders, remember, ZAMSA owns 20%, owned 20%, and First Quantum 80%. And the amount was $2.5 billion. There was a new managing director who came to ZAMSA, was tough, he was clear, he had experience. Pius Kasolo had worked in Ghana for Anglo-American, he had worked in South Africa, and he had worked in Latin America. And he knew the games that mines play because he was an insider. He worked in Ghana on behalf of Anglo-American. So he took these matters very seriously, followed up the audit, and made demands to First Quantum that they should pay the $2.5 billion. Pius Kasolo was not the best of friends with the government of President Edgar Lungu. Because when you touch these big mines, they've inherent friends inside from ministers, permanent secretaries, and aides at State House. Pius was in trouble, he was accused of all sorts of things, but resolute to him, that's a man you should give those awards you give on May Day, on May 25, on Independence Day. Pius Kasolo, I recommend, that needs to be rewarded and recognized in our country. Despite the political pressure from State House, from Ministry of Mines, Pius stood his ground. And he took the matter to court. He reported the directors of First Quantum that they had stolen $2.5 billion. And in one of the mining development agreements we have, is that these matters must be settled in an arbitration in London. Pius Kasolo went to London and lodged in this arbitration process to attempt to recover $2.5 billion. What has happened? As soon as President Hakainde Hichilema came in office, you saw what Musokotwane did. First of all, he discontinued this case. And at every press conference, the president said, we will not mine in court. We will resolve the matters of Vedanta, the matters of First Quantum with Kansanshi, and any other legal outstanding matter. We will not mine in court. It appeared noble. $2.5 billion. So the DPP dropped the charges against First Quantum directors. Number two, government dropped the case in the Lusaka High Court to recover $2.5 billion from First Quantum. And the matter in London was also discontinued. Let's put it in context. How much is $2.5 billion? Remember, Musokotwane has been camped in Washington for the last 3 years looking for $1.3 billion. This is $2.5 billion. So that's the extent of the money. It's not very little money. We are crying the US ambassador is stopping $50 million. This is $2.5 billion. Pali talala, we have discontinued the process to recover this money. We've stopped all court processes to recover this money. We've freed the directors that could have caused this theft. And lastly, First Quantum, after Kobe Mine closed, they had invested, I think, up to $10 billion in Kobe Mine. They're listed in Toronto, Canada. Their liquidity shook. So one of the decisions the shareholders made was that they were going to sell some assets. And unfortunately, some assets listed for sale are those assets that are in Northwestern Province. That is the extent of the problem, because you might have a new shareholder who might disown or distance themselves from this $2.5 billion. Another matter, the same issues around First Quantum, I think, to take away their right to demand this $2.5 billion. Their shareholding was converted to a royalty payment of 3.1%. In April 2023, the minister, in December 2022, the minister held, in fact, I blew this matter up. And then the Minister of Finance came and had this press conference where he made this announcement. If you look at the press conference in December, he said, we've discontinued the court case against First Quantum directors. He said, we've discontinued the matter in court. We told the DPP to stop that case, which in itself is illegal, because the DPP can never be subjected to any direction by anyone. But you will see in that press conference in December 2022, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Musokotwane, said, we have told the DPP to discontinue this matter, and they have discontinued it. And then he announced that we've approved a shareholding conversion. So ZCMIH will no longer hold shares in Kansanshi, Copper and Gold. Instead, it will be converted to a gross revenue royalty payment of 3.1%. And they put up an argument that, in fact, this matter was started by the PF. Like they say everything. If they're printing money, they'll say it was started by PF. If they are doing anything controversial, they'll say it was started by the PF. Constitutional amendments, it was done by the PF. So they said, no, this process to convert shareholding 20% to a gross revenue royalty payment was started by the PF in 2018. So we lost our stay, the dividend model, where we get after profit, we get dividends, and we sit on making decisions. We approve on the board those decisions. That was lost. In May 2022, it became apparent from international media that the president had convened a meeting in Lower Zambezi. This was May 2022. Greg Mills from Brent Hess Foundation was a convener together with First Quantum Mine. Again, the same mine we are complaining about. And there were various decisions. This was held at Royal Zambezi Lodge, the executive lodge that is owned by First Quantum. It was termed as Africa Security Dialogue, and from there we saw the announcement that First Quantum will open up this investment of $1.3 billion to develop a new nickel mine, and that there'll be reinvestment in the mines in Northwestern to the tune of $1.3 billion. A new development agreement was signed. It remained secret. We don't know what the provisions are, but what we know is that there are a lot of incentives that were given to First Quantum. That is about First Quantum. It might look technical. This is what I said. The trouble with the current corruption is sophisticated. It involves lawyers. It involves amendments of the law. It involved changes to tax regime. It's very sophisticated. But at the heart of it is a scam where you are trying to enable this multinational to get away with resources for our country. The other one is Vedanta. Well, the president was on record that he would not allow Vedanta to come back when he was in opposition and when he was president. I remember that I exposed a meeting. A friend of ours told me that Vedanta were holding meetings at a hotel, I think Sarova, with the Minister of Mines and Ministry of Mines and SMI officials, and that they are about to strike a deal. KCM will be given back to Vedanta. So I put that on my page. It brought a storm, and to the extent that the president even addressed the matter on at his press conference, where he said, look, you've heard reports that I want to bring back Vedanta. Who will bring? These liars. People abuse social media. They are abusing social media. We need to stop the abuse of this social media because people are telling lies. The only person who had told that story was me on my page. And ZMBC and others carried big stories how Vedanta will not be allowed to come back, and that the president said this was attributed to liars and propagandists on social media. And you've seen the song, Emmanuel Mwamba is a propagandist. Emmanuel Mwamba is a propagandist. Emmanuel Mwamba is a propagandist. Well, Chabakwati Chipute, you can't hide it. Liabakwati Rifumo, corruption, you can't hide it. There they were. Vedanta were brought back, despite the president telling the nation that at no time in his government will he ever bring back Vedanta. And for one good reason. For 20 years, Vedanta didn't pay taxes. For 20 years, Vedanta became a multi-billion, and it was a small mining company from India, a small local national mining company from India. The period it has held KCM, it became a huge multinational and acquired assets in South Africa, in Namibia, Eastern Europe, and expanded facilities in India. In fact, they even built one of the schools. I think they called it KCM or Konkola. It's one of the best executive schools. It's like a small Harvard in Asia. It was built by Vedanta, but they didn't pay taxes to Zambia. They engaged in transfer pricing transfer pricing is where you create another company to buy your copper. You sell yourself copper very cheaply. Then this company then sells to the market at very high price. They were engaged in mining practices that degraded the value. The very little investment they put on Konkola Deep, which is the biggest asset that Konkola has, $200 billion worth of copper reserves at Konkola Deep. They sank a shaft wrongly somewhere. Whatever it is, it was such shoddy works. Because you borrow $1.5 billion and you say you are putting it in Konkola, then you invest very little. And what occurred was shoddy works. To date, Konkola Deep, which has reserves of over $200 billion, has not been mined. It's one of the wettest mines in the world, and it's one of the deepest mines in the world. It requires careful procedural investment, careful top-notch investment to recover that asset, because it's the wettest mine and it's the deepest mine. And now we have, Vedanta comes to Zambia, makes all these promises that they've never honored. They said we'll bring $1.5 billion, we'll start with $250 million, then there'll be tranches. We are in the second year and nothing has come. There was some announcement that $17 million has been released. These are drops in the ocean in relation to the time that was given and to the amount that should have been invested by now. You saw the issue with CEC that have sued KCM, and they nearly began to seize the assets. Vedanta left a debt of $1.5 billion. I think something like $800 million to ZESCO, to ZRA another $300 million, and more money, a huge debt to contractors and suppliers. Awe, twayaba pela pakanwa, twayaba pela pambale, we just gave them that asset. Tell me if that's not one of the worst corruption. When I come back, I'll discuss the issues around Mopani. Again, these are processes led by the president. Why you see his underlings to security guards stealing. They are seeing what is happening at the top.
Appointed colleagues to make sure that they come on board, and we are hoping that we can move together. The issue of the procurement of medicine, most of it with short shelf life, the major challenge we have had, and I would want to say this, sometimes when we fail, we should admit, is that the ZAMSA project, I could only describe it as a failed project. We have seen pilferages from the top up to the driver, up to the security guard and everyone else. And what we are discussing now is, can we have a ZAMSA reset? Not business as usual. And one of the things I've been having meetings with the cooperating partners, the entire health sector was run by, most of it was run by the US government. We are receiving $600 million on an annual basis, $450 million going into the health sector. I asked the colleagues, the contracts manager from USAID, I had a meeting with the PS, we have been having meetings with them to try and talk about the reset of ZAMSA and how we fill in the void because USAID is going out. And I had a meeting with the contracts manager for USAID. How much does it cost for ZAMSA to distribute the medicine? 3.5 times the cost of what it costs for these agencies that are helping us to do this work. 3.5 times. So if we say ZAMSA starts distributing the medicine and we don't reset ZAMSA, it means we are going to increase the cost by 3.5 times. We had another situation where there was a report, there was no medicine at ZAMSA in 2002. We went in 2003, we had a lot of money from ZAMSA because of procurement. And we sat down and agreed with ZAMSA, for this medicine for this money we have, finish your money that we have. We are not going to recall it because this is an important sector. finish this money before we start giving you the new money. As the money was coming, we were told, no, we don't have any money. Ministry of Finance is not releasing the money. And we received a lot of intelligence report where ZAMSA are saying they don't have the money. We produced a report, ZAMSA had the money. 2 days later, we were told there were trucks that were in a private garage carrying ZAMSA medicine that were not being accounted for. And you ask yourself, where are those?
You'll be able to call us on 0973-078082. You'll be able to make those calls on 0973-078082. Let me just briefly speak to the key issues, and then I invite you to join in the debate. What do you think of this fight against corruption? We have concerns around Mopani. Mopani doesn't have a non-owner. Remember, we have issues around Mopani. We don't know who this investor came. But when the investor came, he made critical decisions. First, the sale didn't go through Parliament, as we have asserted. Number two is that there was no money that came to the state. Number three is that the decisions that was made, a new company was formed called Delta Mining. It's a one. IRH bought the assets of Mopani. Then they formed a new company that has, then put this investment as a loan to the assets of Mopani. And this company, Delta Mining, entered into an immediate agreement with Jubilee Metals to get one of the largest copper assets, the Black Mountain that is in Mufulira. It has 260 million tons of copper assets. It's a huge one. And this Jubilee Metals is celebrating because this is like free copper. Technology now exists where you have to bring and mine this asset. It's just free. You just bring these processors and you begin to get free copper. And they've announced that they'll be doing up to 20,000 metric tons every, I don't know if it's 6 months. But this is a huge copper asset given to Jubilee Metals without clear directives, as if first they needed to get to Mopani. Then Mopani gives them, Mopani gives them, just a minute, yeah. Oh, I don't know what's happening to my computer, but anyway, we'll resolve it. So it's like what was important is for Mopani to access Mopani. And there were issues around Mopani. First of all, the new board chaired by Dorika Banda advertised that they wanted to restructure Mopani and get an equity partner. And therefore, they wanted the local firms in Zambia to apply for that. That process was cancelled. They said, no, bring those that are qualified. So all of a sudden, there was a new partner that came on board. And that new partner, sorry, my internet is acting up. So there was a new partner that came on board, and we saw what happened where a new entity came in to advertise. They advertised and shortlisted. The companies that were shortlisted for Mopani, out of 10 to 4, from 4, all of a sudden came this Dubai company that never participated in the process of the tender. And are the ones that scooped Mopani and the 51% shareholding. Government has a habit of saying, no. Government only had 10% shareholding, and we are now lucky that we have 49%. Woofy. By 2020, the entire mine belonged to ZCCM-IH. 100% by 2020 March. You look up the record, Glencore sold the mine for $1. and gave us a debt of $1.5 billion that you have to pay this over a period. We have discussed this matter that Glencore were in distress. Their directors were being pursued by the Serious Frauds Office in London and by FBI in London. And they were, to secure their assets, they quickly dumped their assets in Zambia, Namibia, South Africa, Australia, and one asset, I think, in Eastern Europe, because this matter wasn't going to end well. They were lucky they were just fined. The directors were facing corruption allegations. That's how we ended up owning Mopani for the first time in 20 years, 100%. So it wasn't 10%. We owned Mopani by 2020, 100%, with a debt of $1.5 billion and marketing rights to Glencore. So that decision to give to this new shareholder 51% without necessary procedure in a process that wasn't transparent, where you exclude the people that participated in the tender, makes it very dirty. And then quickly move to one of its good assets. And remember what we've said about Mopani. Mopani had received investment of $4.5 billion between 2014 and 2020. They sank 3 brand new shafts. They put up 2 new smelters. This was a brand new mine, and it just needed $200 million to kickstart it. But no, we had to give it to IRH, whoever they are. And IRH formed a company called Delta and immediately went into an agreement with Jubilee Metals. Jubilee Metals immediately appointed Munakupia Hantuba, who was very well known as a business associate of the president over the last 30 years. And then Jubilee Metals are given the assets in Mufulira. And in Mufulira, the copper ore there is 260 million tons. ZCMIH was trying to get an equity partner for that mining, West Copper Rock, for $30 million. Jubilee Metals only paid $17 million. Money they will recover the first week they begin to process and sell it. And again, the same Jubilee Metals were given the other mining asset that is in Luansha. These are very serious issues that require answer by the president and his team. Then Ministry of Health, remember we had called for the dismissal of Honorable Sylvia Masebo, who was minister, because there was a company called TFM from South Africa. On May 15th, 2022, they said they had won a tender to construct a 150-bed capacity infectious diseases isolation hospital. This process had started in 2020. We've never had an infectious diseases hospital in Zambia. So COVID taught us a lesson that probably we needed an infectious diseases isolation hospital. So this process started in 2020. 2021, the new government came in and the minister and his team awarded this contract. But TFM and Mkebizi Nlozi, who's the chairperson, wrote a letter to the president and to the Anti-Corruption Commission, and he released the letter to the press that the minister had undertaken a tour to South Africa to see their facilities and had asked for a bribe, a luxury motor vehicle, and some amount. So this Mkebizi Nlozi, who's chairperson of TFM, was so confident with these facts and allegations that he wrote to the president to complain against his minister. He wrote to the SEC. He released that letter to the public. You can't dismiss those assertions that they are of a disgruntled person. The man was a whistleblower. He's saying, look, I've got this contract, but they're putting conditions. They're not signing it. They're saying I need to buy this and this. And he put it in writing. Why the SEC didn't follow that up, I have never understood. Why the president didn't act on the letter by the contractor, I've never understood. If their allegations were spurious, were malicious, were aimed at destroying Madam Sylvia Masebo as Minister of Health, why don't you suspend her, subject the matter to corruption, allegations, allow the SEC to investigate. That if there is malice, then you close the matter very well. But no, in fact, what happened is that the life of the contractor became in danger. He had to rush back to South Africa. And they ended up arresting the permanent secretary, Dr. George Magwende. And that matter has never been prosecuted because the facts are very damning. The facts are very damning. There's another one. $75 million given for medicines and medical supplies through Egyptian Unified Procurement Authority, UPA. This project was fronted as a government-to-government arrangement. But when you look at it, it wasn't a government-to-government agency. The Egyptian Unified Procurement Authority is a very well-known authority set up by the new military government in 2018, 2019. This does centralized procurement for all government agencies. Even our agreement stated that they were going to buy medicines from Egypt and any other places, including India. Why would you send $75 million to an agency in Egypt? Then it goes to scout for your medicine in India, in China, in Egypt. Medicines that your regulator has not approved, has not tested, because of a process where they have to test these medicines, sometimes up to 8 months. You have a shortage in the country. There is no medicine for almost 3 years. But you go and buy foreign untested medicine. We blew this. Daily Nation was on it. I used to write about it very often. We saw a delegation go to Egypt where they now signed a whittled down version of the $75 million. They signed $24 million in August 2024. From $75 million, the first contract was $75 million. ZPPA gave a no objection single sourcing. They gave a no objection to this contract. But in the end, what was signed was $24 million. When everyone walked away from that tender, the Egyptians went into work and they sent containers, the famous 61 containers. They dispatched the first lot in October. Another lot in November. They arrived in Beira, Mozambique. From November, the containers were stranded. Until again the Egyptian had said, "Mwe ku Zambia imo, muleba tamakwa temiti, na mulipira $24 million. Twami tuminenda lama. Twami tuminemiti. The medicine has been stranded in Beira port, in the rain, in the cold. What are you doing about it?" So hastily, a new, I don't know who did it, but Ministry of Health hired a transporter who took the medicine in December and began to shift these 61 containers and put them at a yard in Makeni. From January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, Utulimbusha, they came to tell us their containers marooned. You people say there is no medicine in Zambia, that clinics and hospitals have no medicine. Here are the pictures. I was one of the first people that blew that. News diggers, Daily Nation, everyone followed. The matter was very credible. 2 days later, we saw the Minister of Health, very emotional, issue a statement saying she was now subjecting the managing director for ZAMSA on leave, or they have to explain to her what had happened to this. How can medicine be stranded? Come on, Minister, Riashidi Enwidi. Mwiladi posa na kuliwa ZAMSA. Riashidi Enwidi. The matter was so huge. Lucky enough, President Hakainde Hichilema couldn't duck. He couldn't duck that one. It was too heavy, too big. And the West, where you have $24 million worth of medicine stuck at a warehouse for such a long period, in the rain, in the sun, in the wind. We don't even know the efficacy of that medicine. But we saw ZAMRA quickly come and say, no, the medicine is okay. We don't know that. It could be part of the cover-up. $24 million gone to waste. Mwebantu Wakwalesa, let me hear your voices. Participate in the debate. Call 0973 078082. Let's discuss.
Appointed colleagues to make sure that they come on board, and we are hoping that we can move together. The issue of the procurement of medicine, most of it with short shelf life, the major challenge we have had, and I would want to say this, sometimes when we fail, we should admit, is that the ZAMSA project, I could only describe it as a failed project. We have seen pilferages from the top up to the driver, up to the security guard and everyone else. And what we are discussing now is, can we have a ZAMSA reset? Not business as usual. And one of the things I've been having meetings with the cooperating partners, the entire health sector was run by, most of it was run by the US government. We are receiving $600 million on an annual basis, $450 million going into the health sector.
We have a caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Calling you from Mazabuka. My name is Cyber.
Mr. Cyber, good evening. Please tell us your name and make your contributions.
Thank you so much. So I would like to contribute on, I think, topics.
Yes, thank you.
Cancellation of the $50 million support that we've been receiving from the US government.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite sad. And, I saw the statement from the Minister of Health.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it began saying, these problems began, we are there even in the previous regime. As Zambians, we are tired of getting statements from our leaders saying, previous regime this, previous regime that. We are so tired. And according to that report, which the ambassador gave, it's within this regime, not the PF regime.
Yeah.
So they're saying previous. No. It's this regime. Okay, and they are so proactive when it comes to fixing political opponents. They are so proactive.
Mm-hmm.
You will see the justice system will work, the DPPs here and there,
Mm-hmm.
Ministry of Home Affairs, of course, through the police service, they are here and there. But when it comes to issues that matter, we're talking of health issues here.
Mm-hmm.
They are nowhere to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Now they want to blame the PF government. No.
Mm-hmm.
We voted for them, and according to that report by the US ambassador, it's the UPND government.
Yeah.
Okay. And they actually did, it was across all 10 provinces, they sampled, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, he said, is it 2,000?
Yes, 2,000.
2,000, samples where you sample 2,000 across all 10 provinces. And they find that the medicines that are being sold in these private pharmacies are the medicines that are supposed to freely be given to the Zambian people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we also have NIMA on the other hand. They are deducting our monies.
Yeah.
But also when you go to these pharmacies, you discover that they will say, no, we don't have medicine. Sometimes they have, but they say they don't have. Why? Because government is still not paying those same pharmacies.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my brother.
Let me just move quickly. Let me just summarize by also just tackling this issue. Congratulations to Keith Mwamba.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how you came out regarding, Kamanga. Kamanga wasn't bad. He wasn't, but I think the way he handled Kalushabwalia and his camp after he won, after he took over, and also how he began to handle those that wanted now, the candidates, his fellow candidates.
Yeah.
think that's what she should have struck a balance. You know, taking care of Kalushawad and his camp, working besides them, as well as, you know, making the whole process smooth for all candidates. You know, the whole candidate thing, it was something else. But otherwise, I just hope and pray that Keith Mwamba does not make us, you know, we start saying, no, pray for Egypt like the Israelites.
Yes.
Began to tell.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to go back to Kamanga. No.
Yeah.
He should put on what Kamanga has done so far, and he should improve football going forward, and he should bring unity. Let him embrace Kamanga and his team and everyone that worked with Kamanga. And yeah, otherwise, thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you, my brother from Mazabuka. Thank you for that call. Okay, please go and participate.
And more than 6 months into a forensic audit of the mismanagement of the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency, ZAMSA, there is still no public report, nor has the United States received a private report. Since October, I've alerted senior government officials of my obligation
Good evening. We have another
to
caller.
safeguard
Let me cut to
American
ambassador. Yes, my brother. Please make your contribution.
Thank you, Mwamba.
Mkwai.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. You know, some of us who supported the UPND government because, you know, most of these things that are happening in UPND also happened in PF, and we voted them so that they can come there and sort out things. But they worsened the situation. You know, Mwamba, is really sad. You know, the sad thing is when I was listening to the ambassador, American ambassador, it's not just that they've come out, you know, to tell us because they want to embarrass the government. They've been talking to the government.
33 meetings.
Yes. So, Mwamba, two leaders, you know, they rule with humility. They are humble. They listen. The arrogance of this government is what nobody can understand. You know, you expect the president to say sorry, we'll investigate what is happening. If it was Chiluba, however corrupt Chiluba government was, there would be a commission of inquiry. There would have been a commission of inquiry on the 60 containers. You know that.
Yeah.
So Zambians deserve to know, you know, because like on the 61 containers, we deserve to know why were the 61 containers there. Is that medication okay? Because it's Zambians will be drinking that medication. But Mwamba, for Americans to decide that about parent peer, they did their best. And here is, I've seen the president saying that and I think he never even apologized. I saw some statements somewhere, you know, in the press. It's really, and then the minister comes and they say this was happening in the PF also. Mwamba, if there is a ministry that had corruption beyond PF, was the Ministry of Health. You remember Dr. Bulaya was jailed from Ministry of Health. Kapoko was jailed from Ministry of Health. How did HH appoint Silva Masebo? The person he asked SATA, you remember Mwamba, our president writing to SATA and saying Silvia Masebo is corrupt, you should fine. Actually, it was SATA, it was Silvia Masebo and Kavimba. You remember?
Yes, I remember over the hunting licenses in 2012.
That's licenses. So, but our president knew that ministry was problematic. That ministry needed resetting. That ministry. So it's not that the government is going there doesn't know that ministry, which is so instrumental, which is so strategic, had problems. You tell me they didn't have a solution.
Mm.
And then you go and put a minister who is already corrupt in an environment that is corrupt.
Mm.
And you expect things to come out. So at the end of the day, Mwamba, the buck stops on the president, because the president had the powers to choose the best person to run that ministry. And Mwamba, the corruption that happens in Zambia is as a result of the rotten system.
Yeah.
It's systemic. And the fact that corruption in Zambia is systemic, which means corruption in Zambia is a symptom of poor leadership. You know, and it takes leadership to sort out that corruption at Ministry of Health everywhere. So it's really sad. And then, Mwamba, quickly, you mentioned about the 2.5 billion first quantum. Why did we do that? Why? Mwamba, we are begging for 200 million. So, and then we go and stop that. You know, umulandu ubola. You know, you know, it's not me who is going to remove them. It's the Zambian people. Should the Zambian people remove them, let's reopen that case and recover our money.
Thank you, Wachilufia. Thank you, Wachilufia. From
KCM, you true Mwamba. Me, I was listening, and me, I was one of the people who were against the KCM. They were horrible. Despite making money, the pollution, everything. And Vedanta Mwamba, here in the UK, they were delisted.
Yeah, from London. They were delisted from London. Mkwai. Yes, I can hear you. And I'm asking you to conclude, Wachilufia Wesu.
Hello?
Yes. Hello? Oh, I think we've lost Wachilufia. That's Wachilufia from UK, our regular contributor. I hope this phone is not flat, because I don't have an alternative number for you guys. Hello? You are still there. Please quickly conclude.
Yeah, so I'm still there. So, Vedanta, they were delisted in the UK. They were horrible. And the president announced that, you know, whoever is making rumors, propaganda that Vedanta should stop that. And then the following day, Vedanta
Yeah. No, I was called names. I was called propagandist. But Lufia, let's try to take some other cause.
So let me just finish Mwamba quickly. So they shouldn't have come the way they went. We should have increased our shareholding to 50%. Mopani, we should have controlled Mopani 100%. Or even 51%. And then the question there, Mwamba, there was no transparency, there was no accountability. And Mwamba, when no transparency and accountability, there is a possibility that corruption happens.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
Yeah. Thank you very much. There are so many causes you can hear in the background. Another matter was the SEC board. You know, Unza lecturer and academic Dr. O'Brien Kaba announced that in his view, the extent of systemic corruption was so deep that state chambers, that is the DPP's office and the Attorney General's office, were engaged and facilitating corruption. And he cited there's a compensation fund. This was a fund created in the 2016 elections where all claims, judicial claims, then, are funded. The Auditor General's report of 2023 has cited that the claims against this fund had jumped, and just alone in 623, the claims had come to 623 million. And the amount paid to cadres irregularly, because these cadres, their processes didn't go through the proper court processes. Most of them were nolles. Were paid 47 point something million, 50 million. And the Auditor General cited the looting of the compensation fund at Ministry of Justice. And Dr. O'Brien Kaba blew the whistle. But it's Dr. Kaba and his board that were dissolved. Hello, good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello, evening, Ambassador Mwamba.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
I still want to remain anonymous.
That is fine. We allow that, please. Nayama Saiba is from Zambia will protect you.
First of all, I'm starting on a lighter note.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read the Z Crime 11 verse 35?
No, please tell me which one is that.
Z Crime 11 verse 35 reads, Gonzalez wept.
Yeah. You know, I was moved when I saw the ambassador towards the end of the press conference. He was holding back tears and he was crying. He says it's such a hard personal decision for him even to take, because he knew he was taking away medicines from poor people, you know, for TB, for malaria, and for ARVs. He says this is one of his hardest decisions that he has delivered in his life. And he cried.
Yeah.
He cried. This is not a Zambian. This is a man carrying a pocket of his own money. So please continue. So you are calling it Z Crime 11 verse 35.
Exactly.
Iona
From
Kopelako.
John 11 verse 35. Now this is the Z Crime.
Him
So
cry.
Gonzalez wept.
Yeah,
But
he
then
did.
again, you see, when you look at how we started as a government when the New Dawn came through, you know, we started on a note of calendars, scandal,
Yeah.
protected by the states.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was protected. You know, we are just being sensational about that. You only went to collect calendars from the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, protected by the president.
Mm-hmm.
Airport got scandal. You know, crimes went elsewhere, and the corruption, started appearing around that time again.
Mm-hmm.
Jubilee metals, as you have stated,
Mm-hmm.
that's state corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Minister of Health, you just transfer a minister instead of firing or relieving them of their duties. That's state corruption.
Yeah.
Silverman is still making noise up to today because, you know, she's state protected by the president himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be chasing PF, people who worked, who we know have a track record of doing business,
Mm-hmm.
and we chase them with, proceeds of crime and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very, very unfortunate that the real crime is not being fought, and
Mm-hmm.
we're fighting wind. So
Yeah.
basically, we started on the note of corruption, and this is where we are, and this is where we end. And as such, America's seen, these guys can bite the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
He's right here, and it condemns the government and its reluctance to addressing the issue of corruption, especially in the support that they give to our Minister of Health to support the sick people of our country. It's very unfortunate, and indeed that's why Gonzalez wept. So I end here, and thank you very much, Mr. Mwamba.
Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the lesson of Z Crime 1135, taken from John 1135, where it says Jesus wept. In this case, this man is saying Gonzalez wept. So I was talking about the matter that was cited in the Auditor General's report, where UPND cadres have been refunded irregularly under those claims that went to an illegal consent judgment, because it's to give those awards, you have to have a knowledge, not a knowledge on your head. You either have to win through an acquittal. But 47 million of our money has been paid to UPND cadres. So there is a fund called Compensation Fund. You know, it was promulgated in 2016, and it affirms Article 209 of the Republican Constitution. This is an amendment from 2004. So the Compensation Fund is set up at Ministry of Justice. If you've been irregularly prosecuted, the prosecution was malicious, or you have any claim against the state, you can sue the state, get funding. I have sued those policemen that brutalized me, tortured me, knocked out my tooth, nearly broke my neck. I've taken them to the High Court. In case I win, the Compensation Fund at Ministry of Justice is supposed to pay me. The Auditor General said this fund is being looted. And Dr. O'Brien Kaba, at SEC board member, also cited that the trouble with the way they are looting the compensation fund is that it's a collusion from the DPP and other state chambers like the Auditor General's chambers. This is a serious matter that has gone quiet. Mwantu Wakwalisa, you have to pay attention to the compensation fund. Make your cause. Let's hear your views. Make your cause. We are discussing corruption under President Hakainde Hichilema, and we are asserting that because there are certain things the head of state has not done, he has allowed juniors to get away with the theft that is occurring. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ambassador. I've chosen to be Mr. X as well.
Thank you very much. Please make your contributions.
Well, just to laugh with you again on the Z crime.
Yes.
Chapter 11, verse 35.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's very funny and very, very sad, Ambassador
Mm-hmm.
Emmanuel Mwamba. The predicament that we have, or the predicament that Zambia has found itself in.
Mm-hmm.
For some of us who really voted for the president, and I'm wondering whether it's the president we voted for or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that is very, very clear, I think crystal clear, is the fact that they are not interested in the fight against corruption.
Mm-hmm.
They are not interested at all. Going by all the issues that has been happening from the time he was elected into power, it's very, very sad. Because when I saw what he was trying to say in one of the clips, where I was saying that no, government has no capacity. Government has the police.
Mm-hmm.
Government has the OP.
Yeah.
Government is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So if Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, I own a pharmacy opposite UTH, and I'm in possession of the drugs that is coded, that has barcoded, US, that is not supposed to be sold, I could be cornered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ask exactly where I got these drugs from. From there, the masterminders could be trailed up to the end. And even if they cannot do it countrywide, at once, the 2,000 plus pharmacies, across the country, they could do, say, in Lusaka, in phases. And it's not true, Mwamba, that government can fail to do any of the efforts at their disposal. And then he says that government has no. It's very, very clear that he's not interested into the fight of corruption. And even if he was interested, I think that what the country could have seen was enacting the medical law, maybe. So that instead of the cyber, that he's bringing in, that curtails a freedom of speech, he enacts the medical, laws that gives punitive, charges against those who are involved in the theft of public medicine. In that way, I could have called and said, Mwamba, you are doing propaganda, because then the president has made these strides in making sure that he knew this was going on, and maybe this is the law that is. But the opposite is true.
Yeah. My brother, make your conclusion remarks quickly.
Yeah. So one thing that is I just want to say, I was just trying to agree with many, and I think the rest of the country, that he's not interested in any of the corruption. I think even agreeing with the U.S. ambassador, he's just not interested. And it's a very, very sad verdict. Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have now established where the problem is. And when we come to you for your support, we will lay the report on the table that this is what's been going on, and these are the actions we are taking. And we are determined, if we have to remove 100 people, so it will be.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from. Please speak louder. Thank you, Mr. Anonymous. Speak louder.
I just want to bring you back to your initial comments that were regarding the residence of the president.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for being so insightful, for making people understand the implications of the president living where he is living now. The fact that so much has been expended, and the fact that potentially in the future, the president might expose himself, as Jacob Zuma did, in a very negative litigation. But it also goes back to who we are as a people, because we have a tendency of acquiescing certain behaviors of our leaders and not holding them to account early enough. I think if the people of Zambia had stood their ground and had said, no, Mr. President, we already have a house that is prepared for you, where we the people have said you must reside. I think if we made a strong statement and we were strong then, maybe some of these other allegations that you've outlined in such detail would not occur, because there would have been that fear that the people are the strongest state that is ensuring that assets are protected and people work within the laws and the constitution. But I'd like to thank you. You've gone through a lot. You've been such a vigilant fighter for the people of Zambia. Please continue what you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to today's program. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from and make your contributions.
Yeah, so just like the rest of the some of the callers, I also remain anonymous. But,
Okay.
My contribution is very short.
Just speak louder, my brother.
Also, is on my that,
Just speak louder.
my is just to emphasize on my disappointment that when the head of state was speaking, we expected the listening government to show that there was some sort of remorse over what was happening, rather than coming out to defend themselves. Because that was the tone. The entire tone was just of a person who says, no, you've not understood what we are doing. When the whole Zambia is watching and is understanding that, no, the small fish are always going to be on the table, and the big leaders are going to be allowed to go and get away with it. As one of the callers mentioned, one of them was just transferred from one ministry to another. I just wanted to register my disappointment in that.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Because the health sector has been a sick sector itself. Supposed to be healing, but it's been sick in terms of theft of public, drugs. It's a cancerous situation. It's an old situation we inherited. So the president.
Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
My name is Mr. X. I'm calling from Chirirawombe.
Yes, Mr. X. Make your contributions.
Yeah, mine is just a quick one, very, very quick one. I just want to react to the previous caller who talked about where the president resides and possible litigations he might face in the future. And that as people we could have made something strong. We could have said, you could have told him strongly to say president does how many things have people spoken about? Stop this prosecution, stop this, the medicines everyone is crying about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go to more calls. I've got I think about 13 minutes, so if you have any calls to make to the decisions and discussion we're having, I was tabulating that in my view, the president has not led very well in the fight against corruption. It has been rhetoric. And then he's been accused himself of acts of corruption, which I detailed in the program. And therefore, it is easier for the juniors to engage in the wanton acts of corruption you've seen. From the traffic police department, but Minister of Home Affairs and Interior Affairs, Jack Mwimbu, has repeatedly said there'll be no roadblocks. I'm a roadblocks. Hello, ya fulano fula. And there are more policemen that want to be in the traffic department than in the patrol department to fight crimes, junkies, drug pilferation, and everything affecting our country. You have traffic police officers harassing our minibuses. Have you seen every day how they only stop minibuses by it at an ATM and they loot from our young people that are trying to earn a living? They only target minibuses between 7 and 8 hours peak hours, 12 hours to 14 hours, and between 17 and 19 hours. Jack Mwimbo has repeatedly said no roadblocks, but it's a cartel. It's like the song we sing about medicines. Everyone is involved, so nothing gets done. The looting continues.
They asked for an audit, not a normal audit, but a forensic audit. And we knew that inside government we didn't have the capacity. But the auditor of all public finances is the Auditor General. This story is very important. So we then asked the Auditor General to subcontract to private firms with capacity to do forensic audit.
Just a minute, let me clear you. Yes, good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hi, good evening. This is Novo. I'm calling you from Berlin.
Okay, Novo from Berlin. Wonderful. Please make your contribution.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the things that you have outlined. I joined in the middle of the meeting, but I would like to say that it's really disappointing to see how His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema is driving the nation. He's taking it as his own personal property, unfortunately, and he's not carrying the people along in whatever he does, which is very shocking. And you cannot have a leader who blames always people. I don't think it's a good quality of a good leader to be blaming people, because a leader is there to manage, to mitigate, and to stand in where there are errors. You don't go there to condemn, you go there to rectify. So doing that always for me comes out as a weakness, and I also look at him as somebody who underestimated the position of being a president. It's like he was not well prepared for it. He didn't know what comes with the position itself, because if he did, I think he will present himself better. That's how I look at it. Then two, I look at all these corruptions that has been exposed in the government, and I think HH has a problem of always being in denial. I don't know if he sees himself as an angel, because for me, I always feel like it's always a good thing to acknowledge where there is a mistake. It's also a good quality that you see in a good leader. You acknowledge to say there is an error here, but how can we rectify? I think for me that's a good step in a positive direction. And like denying, and yet everybody can see that this is what is happening. So for me, this comes out as, and that's why that's why the economy is so bad, because he can't admit that we have a problem here. He will keep denying and acting as if everything is fine. Meanwhile, everything is not fine. They keep twisting the constitution to their favor, doing things that Zambians are not aware of, doing everything according to what suits him, and it's not right. And I don't think he has any right or standing in the constitution where he needs to come from his house to be going to State House to work. Like, then he can as well work just from his home, because what is in State House that he's running away from? I don't understand why we have to undergo, Zambia is just a small nation, like it's not Iraq. He's not in any danger. Nobody's after his life. We are peaceful people, so why must he come from his home to go to work? Like, I don't understand this logic. I don't see why he should spend so much fuel, risk the people that escort him always. People have been dying, and he sees nothing wrong with it. Like, this is unacceptable. Yes.
Thank you, my dear sister. Yeah. Okay, conclude.
Okay, thank you so much, Bagamba.
Conclude quickly.
To conclude, I just want to say that you cannot shut people up. I think we have always had laws that regulated cyberspace and stuff like that, because there are already people in jail. People have been to court over such issues. So it's not like it was not in existence. So to bring a stiff law, I think it has only him to benefit and not the Zambian people. So they should just think twice, because we are living in a world whereby now freedom of expression with all these social tools that have come up, it's something to live with. You can't like cut it off from the people. It won't work like that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much.
In accordance with the law. And that process was undertaken. Terms of reference were reviewed by our cooperating partners in the health sector. And the contract was awarded to PricewaterhouseCoopers, led by Andrew Chiboye. I think you know Andrew, some of you. And Andrew was given, Pricewaterhouse was given the work to do up to December.
Just hold on. Yes, good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Honorable Ambassador Wilson, good evening once again.
Good evening. Who's calling?
John Mabo.
Oh, our leader in Italy, president of the Zambians in Italy. Please, Bamabo, make your contributions.
Thank you. The Association of Zambians in Italy.
Mkwai.
The previous caller, I think it's the lady.
From Germany, yes.
Yes, if you feel like, you know, undermining the collective intelligence of our forefathers, our, like, why we have Mkwazi House, why we have State House, but today, in Ireland, and the lack of patriotism, just to recap that, it seems in mockery number. We are living in an era, Zambia, where the mockery is at a national level. Now, Ambassador, with your previous government, because Tamwadi Shapo, diplomat from an affluent country, in your country.
You are the delay, Mkwai, out to a chepa.
Blame game for 4 years. Now, Ambassador, we shall theory increase, in order to decrease essential commodities in a third world country. Contribute because we've become like a job, but maybe I believe in my heart that this is a lesson that God wanted us to learn, as maybe we've taken for granted what God has given us, the people who He assigned to lead us, and the people who are supposed to be doing business, people are supposed to be farming, people are supposed to be leading. Maybe we've gotten it all wrong somehow, and we must learn a lesson, because one day abantu besu n'abachula ambassador n'abasoswa, and this conceited and this condensation and this exaggerated self-image being portrayed with ultimate arrogance. I'm wondering, it's very, very interesting to watch.
Giovanni, thank you very much from Italy, and I think you'll be our last caller, unless there's any other caller. We're discussing the extent of corruption under President Hakainde Hichilema, and we're congratulating the ambassador from the US for making those remarks open, public, transparent. They have a stake in our country. They give us up to $600 million a year. And the money he talks about for TB, malaria, HIV, AIDS is a separate package from the usual $600 million they give us. Remember, they gave us under the Millennium Challenge that Bombay drainage facility to attempt to dewater Lusaka so that Lusaka doesn't flood. There's supposed to be a second phase. And we've been big beneficiaries of USAID money, and a lot of people have been affected by the decision to discontinue USAID. So many people accuse us that the biggest bilateral partner for Zambia is China, looking at the investment. It's actually the US. Year to year, they give us $600 million. So they will withdraw under USAID. And then the withdrawal of this $50 million meant for ARVs, TB drugs and TB fight and malaria fight is a huge blow, especially to our poor people. I am ARVs free of charge. People think they are cheap. They are not cheap, they're extremely expensive. That's why you hear in the borders that Namibians come to Sesheke to get ARVs. People travel from somewhere from Angola into Congo to get free ARVs. And all our border up to Botswana, Zimbabwe, because these medicines are very expensive. And they've been provided for us since 2003, courtesy of the American government. Yes, China supported us in the infrastructure development of the airports, dams, roads, but year to year, bilateral partner, your biggest bilateral partner, Zambia, is the US, and the recent development is something to worry about. I asserted that the president has been a poor leader when it comes to the fight against corruption, because there are key things he should have led. He should have moved to State House. He doesn't. He's incurring a lot of money every day in trekking from Community House to State House. Number two, the infrastructure, security upgrades that have been done to his house and to his route is also a huge cost, including rerouting the flights above, Chalala, where they've been rerouted to Ngwerere, because wherever the president is, it becomes a no-fly zone. And then I catalogued the corruption around decisions around First Quantum and Kansanshi, the $2.5 billion, the return of KCM to Vedanta. I went into detail. The decision on Mopani, a mine that had received $4.5 billion in investment, it just required to be switched on. It's been given to an unknown miner, IRIH, who formed a company called not Jubilee Metals. Anyway, they formed a new company that then gave Jubilee Metals that huge asset in Mufulira. So it's like they're going to get and mine the mining dump, the West Rock, that has 260 million copper ore. Mine it, sell the copper, then pump into Mopani for Mopani to run, because it's a brand new mine. It just requires a start. And that the sale agreement has been registered as a debt, shareholder debt at Pakra. So that, for me, is a matter of concern. And this entire process was driven by the president, because there was a procurement process that was abandoned. A new owner came who we don't know, and this new owner announced that they were the owners. So I was looking for the word Delta Mining. So IRIH, who didn't participate in the procurement process, came on board at the last minute in November, and they were announced as a winning bid to be an equity partner to Mopani. And one of the key things they immediately did was to hand over the assets under Mopani of the Black Mountain in Mufulira. They gave it to Jubilee Metals, who immediately appointed Mnankupia Hantuba as chairperson of Jubilee Metals in Zambia. Mnankupia Hantuba is a long-term business associate of the president. If you look at the trail, despite the sophistication, despite the presence of lawyers, that's an act of huge corruption. And we talked about the compensation fund, where UPND, there's a fund at Ministry of Justice. It's been enshrined in the Republican Constitution, especially on human rights, that if there are human rights abuses and people sue, there'll be a compensation fund. If there are irregular decisions by the state, there'll be a compensation fund. This fund is located at Ministry of Justice. It's being looted. It's been cited under the Auditor General's report, where the claims have risen in 1 year alone by 600 million kwacha. And the fund is sitting at over 4 billion kwacha claims. And so far, over 50 million kwacha, 50 million kwacha has been paid irregularly to UPND cadres, exclusive from Frank Tayali, to the wife to Chief Mukuni and Sejani and others. They've been given 50 million. These are processes are highly irregular, and the Auditor General knows what the law says. The law is very clear, is that these people should have gone to court, or the state should have not just discontinued in a nolle prosequi, that they should have gotten a full way, and these people should have won the cases. On acquittal, then you can sue for malicious prosecution. There was no malicious prosecution established. A consent judgment under state chambers was hammered out, and these compensations up to 50 million kwacha have been paid. There was Dr. O'Brien Kaba, University of Zambia lecturer, lawyer, academic, and he was sitting on the board. He said the extent of corruption where it's being facilitated by the DPP and Attorney General's chambers was so appalling, and he expressed regret. He forced himself to write an open letter to the country. The extent is shock that institutions such as the SEC, the DPP, and the Attorney General, that should be in the forefront of fighting corruption, were the ones engaged in corruption. So if you look at all these issues that I've listed, it is easier for us to have this looting from the minister to the security guard, because the president has not been leading in fighting corruption. And until next time, I'll leave you with the videos that we're playing. I'll start with the one by Felix Nkulukusa, the other one by the president, and the other one by the US ambassador. And we wrap up until Monday. God bless you. God bless our country. And God save whoever is trying to mess with our country.
I asked the colleagues, the contracts manager from USAID. I had a meeting with the PS. We have been having meetings with them to try and talk about the reset of ZAMSA and how we fill in the void because USAID is going out. And I had a meeting with the contracts manager for USAID. How much does it cost for ZAMSA to distribute the medicine? 3.5 times the cost of what it costs for these agencies that are helping us to do this work. 3.5 times. So if we say ZAMSA starts distributing the medicine and we don't reset ZAMSA, it means we are going to increase the cost by 3.5 times. We had another situation where there was a report, there was no medicine at ZAMSA in 2002. We went in 2003, we had a lot of money from ZAMSA because of procurement. And we sat down and agreed with ZAMSA for this medicine for this money we have. Finish your money that we have. We are not going to recall it because this is an important sector. Finish this money before we start giving you the new money. As the money was coming, we were told, no, we don't have any money. Ministry of Finance is not releasing the money. And we received a lot of intelligence report where ZAMSA are saying they don't have the money. We produced a report, ZAMSA had the money. 2 days later, we were told there were trucks that were in a private garage carrying ZAMSA medicine that were not being accounted for. And you ask yourself, where are those?
The initial way. So we decided, the president decided we needed to have an initial report to see which direction this thing is going. In the process, some of our cooperating pastors started issuing contrary statements that there's nothing happening in controlling the problems in the cancerous health sector, contrary to what we agreed as a process. So I called a meeting here. We had a meeting like this last Friday. I think it was Friday. And opened remarks, the media left. When we went through, we ended up working together and hugging each other. That's what can happen if people start to issue contrary statements without reaching out to each other. And you find that the work we agreed, what Pricewaterhouse has done, is in accordance with the work we asked them to do. The preliminary report, the final report will come in December. And in December, we will sit again to now agree what sanctions need to be taken. I must alert you as citizens that the health sector has been dogged with problems for probably 20 years. And we are committed to rooting out those problems. But we can't do it by a thumbsuck. We have to pin down where the problems are, right? Who is taking drugs? How is it that drugs leave a health process system, end up in private pharmacies, some of which are owned by people working in the same health sector? We have now established where the problem is. And when we come to you for your support. We will lay the report on the table that this is what's been going on, and these are the actions we are taking. And we are determined, if we have to remove 100 people, so it will be.
Taxpayers' resources in the face of the gross theft and mismanagement. I have stressed repeatedly that the accountable safeguarding of American taxpayer funds will require the United States to significantly reduce our contribution of medicines and medical supplies if meaningful action is not taken to hold high-level culprits responsible and to stop that theft. I have messaged that consistently at very senior levels since October. After more than 1 year of little tangible action by Zambian authorities to address this systematic theft of U.S.-provided health support, the United States can no longer justify to the American taxpayer continuing to provide massive levels of assistance when the Zambian government doesn't take the necessary measures to protect this American investment. And as a result, and truly with a very heavy heart, the United States government has made this very difficult decision to cut $50 million of our annual support for critically needed medications and medical supplies in Zambia. Again, that's 1.4 billion kwacha of assistance that is being lost. The exact parameters of the reduction are not yet finalized, and my embassy team and I remain available to engage with the government to discuss how we do this. This is not a decision that we have taken lightly. And I've recommended to Washington that we do continue to procure and deliver these life-saving medicines and medical supplies to Zambia through the end of this year.